Welcome to Profitable Women, a podcast for the female business owner who wants to build a profitable and sustainable business that aligns with their life. We will talk about the money stories impacting your decisions, financial strategies to grow your profits, and how to embrace your female superpowers. I'm your host, Sheila Hansen, certified public accountant, business mentor, and certified coach. As a wife, mom of 3, and business owner, I have spent the last 7 years supporting 6-figure business owners make confident financial decisions while raising my babies. After making the hard decision to leave my job at a public accounting firm when I had my oldest, I'm now on a mission to empower women to build wealth without sacrificing themselves. If you find yourself avoiding conversations about money, are burnt out from working all the time, wonder where your cash goes, or want to learn how to pay yourself 6 figures, you're in the right place. Remember, the information in this podcast is general in nature and for educational purposes only. For specific financial advice for your situation, please consult a professional. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the show. Welcome back for another episode. In today's episode, we're going to dig into the common feelings that often come up for females as it relates to money. But then I'm going to share with you my number one tool for overcoming those feelings. All right, this might date myself a little bit, but you know in the movie Old School, there's that scene where they're in the therapist office and the therapist is explaining that his office is a safe place, a place where they can be free to share their feelings. It's a tree of trust where they can share, say anything. And as the scene goes on, then Will Ferrell's character goes on to share whatever's on his mind, and then has to confirm that they are still in that trust tree. Well, money and business ownership can bring up a lot of feelings. And so I want you to know that this space here is your new trust tree. It's where we are allowed to get curious without judgment or shame or guilt, any of those other feelings that you maybe have had. This is our safe place. And so let me share with you, having been on lots of calls with other female business owners, I understand that feelings might be uncomfortable for you. And when I talk to female business owners about their money, they often share with me that they are stressed, anxious, fearful, overwhelmed, that they feel some shame or guilt around their money, that something has stopped them from digging into it previously because they feel like they're going to be judged. So first and foremost, I want to pause and say, if you have ever been in a situation where you felt judged or shamed, whatever you felt was valid about that situation, and I am sorry that that was your experience. But now let me share with you a little about why this space is different. So I've done a lot of self-discovery and learned specifically using the Enneagram as a tool to learn about myself. And so you know, I am an Enneagram type 4. If you don't know anything about the type 4, let me give you a little recap of what we're about. 4s are self-aware, sensitive, and reserved. We are emotionally honest, creative, and personal, which can also mean we're maybe moody and self-conscious. So we tend to withhold ourselves from others due to feeling vulnerable and defective. And we can also feel disdainful and exempt from ordinary ways of living. The default emotion that we feel is shame. So when I say I get it, it's because I get it. I know what you may be feeling. I have been there. But I also know that the path to growth is for us to be open and vulnerable and to let go of those negative feelings of shame and guilt and judgment that we might be holding against ourselves. The truth is, when it comes to money, when it comes to these skills, when it comes to this information, it's very likely that nobody has taught you these skills. So we are holding ourselves to some level of expectation that is maybe unrealistic for us to have. It's not like it was some lesson in school that you just missed because you were gone that day. You maybe have never been exposed to this. This whole journey is a new path that you're paving, and you're figuring things out along the way as a business owner, and the money part is no different. So I want you to know that this is a shame and guilt and judgment-free zone. I'm not going to judge you, and I encourage you to not judge yourself. I want you to be proud that you are showing up for yourself in this new way. And in that, I also want you to know that it's so common for entrepreneurs, especially, to be Enneagram type 3s, who tend to do everything possible to avoid those feelings. I know what I'm asking of you when I'm asking you to lean into this discomfort, but I'm going to ask you to lean into it anyway, because there are two things that can be true. We can feel discomfort and we can take these actions that we know are necessary to grow and move forward. Let me share something that I learned in my life coach certification. And it's called the model, and it is a very powerful tool to understand where our thoughts and feelings and the results that we get come from. And in the model, we learn that our feelings stem from thoughts. And then those feelings lead us to actions that we're either taking or potentially not taking. And then whatever actions we take or don't take produce the results that we get. So if we go back to the scenarios previously, if we think about those feelings that we were talking about, the shame, the guilt, if we're feeling that, one of the most common actions then becomes really an action. Is that a word? An inaction, but we avoid. Or another word for it is buffering, where we are doing things to not feel that feeling. So when we avoid our money, or when we avoid whatever the current financial situation is, the result then is we end up in further stress, more overwhelm, and more guilt. It becomes this cycle that keeps repeating. And the way we then change that result is by changing the thoughts that we have around money. So let me give you a little example of how it would work if we look at it this way. So if we have the thought, money is complicated, right? I think that's a common thought that a lot of people have. Money is complicated, or it's something that you can do wrong. Now, if we think about that thought, money is complicated, there probably are some situations where if somebody has the thought something's complicated, it would be motivating for them. But more likely, if you have the thought that something is complicated and you already have a to-do list of other items, or there's other things that seem less complicated, which one are we going to go to first? Where are we going to spend our time? We're probably going to end up spending our time on the easier activity. But that thought, something is complicated, is maybe going to produce the feeling of dread, something we don't want to do. We're not excited about it. So when we're feeling dread, what do we end up doing? More likely, what do we not do? We don't do that thing. We don't spend time learning about this, digging into our numbers, reviewing our results, asking ourselves questions on why do we have the beliefs about money that we do. So when we're avoiding that thing, we're not going to get the results, or we're not going to get something different than it remains complicated for us. We're not going to make any progress on it. So how do we turn this whole thing from a negative emotion generating thing to something different? We change the thoughts around it. My number one tool, I am so excited to share this with you. I have heard of people starting to implement this, and they come back excited to tell me about it, which just warms my heart so much. So the number one tool I have for you about changing those thoughts is to have a money date. And I specifically said date, not an appointment, not a meeting, not just a thing on your calendar. No, from now on, I want you to show up to your finances like you would a date with your significant other. The beginning might feel like that awkward first date, but we're going to move past that. We want to get to that feeling of the excited date, right? So what can we think? What kind of thoughts can we have that will get us to a place where we're excited and curious and we have enthusiasm about this time that we're spending with our money? I want your thoughts about your money date to sound similar to going on a romantic date and not so much like something you would dread doing. So what does this look like? Don't overthink it, first of all, because we don't want to put hurdles in showing up for the date. But what it looks like is picking a time, choose if it's going to be a date night or a day date, whatever your vibe, and then get ready. Maybe you dress fancy, if that's your thing. Maybe it's more cozy, comfy. Maybe you light some candles, turn on music. But do something to get excited about this time. Because here's the thing. Our nervous systems, our bodies, respond in a particular way. And if we have something that is always stressing us out, but we never give that thing any attention other than when we're feeling stressed about it, our bodies naturally begin to respond to that thing in the way that we would respond to stress. And they're like, get me out of here as quickly as possible. By creating this money date, by having this money date, it is a place for us to start to feel safe, for our bodies to feel comfortable. And then once we feel safe, we can take small steps, right? Maybe in the beginning, your money date is a 5-minute, open your online banking, check your bank balance, and then just get curious about what that story is you are telling yourself about the number that's on the screen. Does it feel large? Does it feel small or low to you? Is there a particular number that if you opened it up, you feel like that would feel good? Maybe that is where you start in these money dates. But then as you build excitement, as you regularly put these on your calendar and show up as something that you're not dreading, as something you're looking forward to, then you're going to add more steps to it. You're going to spend a little more time digging into various areas. You're going to want to learn and want to grow. And maybe you even then bring others into that money date and that conversation with you, whether it be a professional, whether it be somebody to help you understand the tax side, because that's an area you don't understand. Maybe it's an area that you start working on building a cash reserve. Maybe if the word budget doesn't feel right to you, think of some other word that changes your thought and creates a different feeling. A map, a plan, because I would much rather spend time creating a map for this journey I'm going on than sitting down to do a budget. I'm a CPA, and sitting down to do a budget doesn't produce an excited feeling for me. Your homework from this episode is for you to have a money date with yourself, and then I want you to share with me the vibe of your date. What did you go with? Did you go with romantic and sexy? Did you go with fun and casual? Did you go with cozy and comfy with a warm coffee and blanket? But I want to hear how it goes. So you can shoot me a direct message on Instagram at sheila.hansencpa. You can find that in the show notes. Or if you do a story with this podcast in it and tag me in there, but I want to know how it goes for you. And I want you to feel safe in this space to come with whatever emotions you currently have around money, and know that it doesn't always have to feel that way for you. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Profitable Women. Make sure you never miss an episode by hitting the follow button in your favorite podcast player. And things are always easier when you talk about them with a friend, so be sure to share this episode with them. If you're looking for more ways to grow your financial confidence, head to the show notes for a link to subscribe to our weekly email. Until next time.